Those who know the right questions must reach those asking the wrong ones, and sometimes even the lost. I protect my identity because truth has a body count. Welcome to the Anarchist File. The anxiety loop. The lie they told you is simple. You are lazy, unmotivated, a slacker with no grit, no resiliency, no spine. They told you that if you can't produce 16 hours a day, it's because you're weak. If you can't sit down and finish your Toto list, it's because you're defective. But laziness isn't the epidemic of this generation. The real epidemic is overdrive. A brain revving in neutral, a nervous system redlining at 7,000 RPM, sparks flying, engines screaming but the wheels never catch. That's not laziness. That's anxiety. It looks like procrastination, but it's not. It looks like apathy, but it's not. It's a loop. Thought gives fear, gives freeze, gives repeat, over and over, until the day is gone, until the decade is gone, until the civilization is gone. And here's the ugly truth. Your anxiety is not an accident. It's not some random defect in your chemistry. It's not even personal. Anxiety is infrastructure. It's been built, scaled, engineered. Your panic attacks are someone else's profit. Your overthinking is someone else's recurring revenue. Your inability to rest is someone else's balance sheet. The engineered spiral. Open your phone. Every red bubble is a micro-panic attack. Every push notification is a jolt of cortisol. Every headline is designed to raise your blood pressure, not lower it. Do you think this is an accident? Do you think billion-dollar companies stumbled into anxiety as a side effect? No. Anxiety is the product. Your spirals are their subscription model. B.F. Skinner discovered in the 20th century that pigeons will peck a leva endlessly if the reward is random. Silicon Valley put that box in your hand and called it Twitter, TikTok, Instagram. Each swipe is a leva, each refresh is a maybe, and the uncertainty keeps you hooked longer than certainty ever could. The result? Your nervous system is permanently on edge. You don't wake up calm, you wake up braced for the next crisis, the next dopamine hit, the next catastrophe. That is not malfunction, that is design. The myth of choice. They tell you that you choose your anxiety, that you could stop if you really wanted to, that you could meditate it away, breathe it away, app it away. But here's the truth. You are not a free agent in the system. The architecture has been built around you, over you, through you. The feed is not neutral. The scroll is not innocent. The platforms are not accidental. You are not choosing anxiety. You are being farmed for it. And this is why the meme about touching grass is a joke. Because you can walk outside, breathe fresh air, stare at the sky, but your nervous system is already wired to the loop. You carry the feed in your bloodstream. The loop is inside you now. The class divide anxiety is not evenly distributed. It never has been. The poor spiral, the middle class takes, the rich outsourced, the sovereign class profits. You, the anxious worker, refresh email 200 times a day. Your boss doesn't. He is an assistant. You check the market in panic. The hedge fund manager doesn't. He has a Bloomberg terminal and a team. You fear losing followers. The influencer doesn't. He has a manager scheduling posts. Anxiety is a tax on the powerless. Freedom from anxiety is the dividend of wealth. And that S, the part no one tells you. The sovereign Don T play the anxiety game. They sell it. They build the platforms that make you spiral. They craft the campaigns that make you They package the products that soothe the loops they engineered in the first place. The malaise of the West, we are told. The malaise of the modern West is depression, alienation, loneliness. All true, but those are outcomes. The operating system underneath it all is anxiety. It is the loop that drives every other pathology. Addiction to sugar, porn, caffeine, weed, these are attempts to calm the loop. Addiction to scroll, to rage bait, to endless doom scrolling, these are attempts to distract from the loop. Even the obsession with productivity, with hustle culture, with grind until you die, all of it is an anxious loop disguised as virtue. And the cruel irony, the harder you try to escape anxiety by indulging these habits, the deeper into the loop you go. The system doesn't need you to be happy. It doesn't need you to be free. It needs you to be anxious enough to keep consuming, but not anxious enough to completely collapse. The perfect livestock, agitated, restless, constantly grazing for dopamine, never satisfied. The sovereign perspective now imagines seeing this from the top, from the balcony of wealth, of high status, of sovereignty. You look down and see a population spinning in loops, spiraling in panic, consuming endlessly just to soothe themselves, unable to focus, unable to rebel, unable to build, and you profit. Every anxious refresh is ad revenue. Every panic-driven purchase is quarterly growth. Every sleepless night is more engagement. The anxious man thinks he is lazy. The sovereign man knows he is livestock. Setting the stage, so let's be clear. Anxiety is not a mental health crisis. It is not an unfortunate epidemic. It is the organizing principle of consumer society. The loop is not a malfunction in your head. The loop is the architecture of your civilization. And unless you break out of it, unless you see it for what it is, you will not live. You will not build. You will not lead. You will spiral until collapse. Anxiety feels personal. It feels like a flaw unique to you, your brain, your childhood, your trauma. But zoom out far enough, and the pattern is too clean, too universal, too profitable to be coincidence. Anxiety isn't random. It's engineered. It's built into the architecture of modern life. The loop is not a private malfunction. It's a public utility. Notifications as weapons. Consider the red bubble. That tiny badge on your phone, an abstract out of color, has been a bee tested into oblivion? Should it be blue? No. Yellow. No, red. Always red. 'Cause red signals danger. 'Cause red spikes your cortisol. Because red triggers a primal alert. Something is wrong. Fix it now. Every notification is a you don't get to decide when it hits. It hijacks you mid-meal, mid-conversation, mid-dream. Your nervous system is rewired into a permanent state of alert. You live like a soldier on a battlefield, except the bombs are emails, the ambush is Slack, the artillery is a group chat. You are not malfunctioning. You are functioning exactly as designed. The Scroll-esque cage. Scroll culture is the Skinner box perfected. B.F. Skinner showed that pigeons would peck forever at a leva if the reward was random. Sometimes food, sometimes nothing. The uncertainty was the hook. Now you hold that box in your hand. Each flick of the thumb is a leva. Each refresh is a gamble. Maybe it's a meme. Maybe it's outrage. Maybe it's nothing. You never know. So you never stop. Infinite scroll is not entertainment. It is containment. You think you're browsing the world? You're pacing a cage? Work is perpetual emergency. Then there's the architecture of work. Once upon a time, work ended. The factory whistle blew. The office lights dimmed. The ledger closed. Now the office is your pocket. The boss is your inbox. The workday has no boundaries. Every ping feels urgent. Every message feels existential. Your nervous system has been conscripted into capitalism's permanent state of emergency. You are never off duty. You are always one notification away from panic. This isn't productivity. This is control. A tired worker rests. An anxious worker checks his phone at 2 a.m. Media as panic machine. The news is no longer news. It is engineered anxiety. Every headline is written to agitate, not inform. You are not told what happened. You are told what to fear. Climate apocalypse. Financial collapse. War on the horizon. Virus on the loose. Every day a new catastrophe. Every hour a new panic. This isn't journalism. This is adrenaline drip. You're not being informed. You're being conditioned. Conditioned to believe the world is always collapsing. Conditioned to stay tuned for the next alert. Conditioned to never exhale. Anxiety is infrastructure. Add these layers together. Notifications, scroll, work, news, and what you get is not coincidence. What you get is infrastructure. You are not anxious by accident. You are anxious by design. This system runs on your loops. Your inability to rest is not a side effect, it is the fuel. The anxious citizen consumes more coffee to work, pills to sleep, sugar to sleep, weed to calm, TikTok to distract. The anxious citizen is compliant, too distracted to rebel, too tired to organize, too wired to build. The anxious citizen is perfect livestock. Historical precedent. This isn't the first time rulers engineered nervous systems. Rome's circuses weren't just entertainment. They were adrenaline management. Keep the masses excited, panicked, distracted. Britain's gin craze wasn't just indulgence. It was sedation on an industrial scale. What Silicon Valley built is simply the digitized, globalized version. Bread and circuses collapsed into a glowing rectangle. Opium pipes replaced by infinite feats. The nervous system hacked not by priests or emperors but by product managers and UX designers. Every empire discovers the same truth. Control the appetites, control the people. Modernity simply refined the method. The class divide in design. Now ask yourself, why do the elites not drown in this system? Why are the sovereign calm while the masses spiral? Because the architecture is not built for them. The elite don't refresh 200 times a day. They hire someone to check email. They don't scroll TikTok until dawn. They own the platform. They don't panic at headlines. They commission the reports before the headlines are written. The architecture is tilted. It ensnares the powerless and leaves the powerful untouched. The loop is a tax bracket. Anxiety is the operating system. This is why memes about procrastination resonate. This is why can't stop overthinking goes viral. It's not individual failure, it's the collective operating system. The modern West doesn't run on oil or coal. It runs on cortisol. It runs on nervous energy. It runs on people who can't stop spiraling. And that is why the culture feels stuck. Not because people are lazy, not because they lack ambition, but because their energy is caught in loops. An engine screaming in neutral while the empire drifts into collapse. So when you feel your heart spike at a ping, when you feel your brain freeze at a decision, when you feel yourself spiraling into loops, isn't just you, it's the design, it's the architecture, it's the business model. Anxiety is not an error message. It's the software running in the background of your civilization. And until you see that clearly, you'll blame yourself for what was built to enslave you. You are not lazy. You are not defective. You are livestock in an anxiety farm. Every economy has its core resource. Rome harvested grain. Britain extracted coal. America mined oil. The new economy runs on something different. It runs on fear. Anxiety is the perfect commodity. Renewable, scalable, infinitely refinable. A resource that grows stronger the more it is consumed. Every loop is a transaction. Every panic is a purchase order. You don't just feel anxiety, you produce it. You export it, you circulate it like currency. And above you, corporations and governments sit like bankers, harvesting the interest. The predictability of fear. Markets worship predictability. And the anxious man is nothing if not predictable. The calm man buys once. The anxious man buys forever. The calm man makes a decision and moves on. The anxious man second guesses, double checks, refreshes the page, adds 3 subscriptions just in case. The calm man might ignore an ad. The anxious man can't. What if he misses the deal? What if he misses the trend? What if he misses out? His own fear converts him into revenue. This is why advertising has shifted. It's no longer aspiration that sells. It's agitation. The 1950s AD told you you'd be glamorous with the right cigarette. The 2020s AD tells you you'll be unsafe, unworthy, unprepared without the right product. Fear doesn't just sell. Fear guarantees sales. Panic is recurring revenue. Recurring revenue is the holy grail of capitalists. The subscription model. The monthly auto-renew anxiety is the original subscription. Wake up anxious. Buy coffee. Afternoon crash. Buy sugar. Can't sleep. Buy melatonin. Overthinking. Buy weed. Feeling empty. Buy porn. Distracted. Buy an app. Every loop leads back to the marketplace. Every panic funnels into consumption. Anxiety is the engine that never turns off. The subscription that never cancels. The direct debit straight from your nervous system. It's elegant. It's infinite. It's brutal. Consumption as coping. The anxious man consumes not for pleasure but for relief. He buys to quiet the loop. The energy drink isn't about taste, it's about silencing the fear of collapse. The online shopping spree isn't about fashion. It's about calming the dread of inadequacy. The streaming binge isn't about entertainment. It's about muting the voice in your head that won't stop screaming. But the relief never lasts. The loop always returns. And the return of the loop guarantees the return of the customer. This is why anxiety is the most profitable engine ever designed. It creates the problem, sells the solution, and ensures the solution never solves anything. The self-monetizing loop here is the genius. Anxious people monetize themselves. They become both the livestock and the farmer. They panic about productivity, so they buy courses. They panic about mental health, so they subscribe to therapy apps. They panic about distraction, so they download focus tools. They panic about spending too much time online, so they buy another app to track it. The anxiety generates the problem. The marketplace packages the solution. The solution keeps the anxiety alive. And the loop keeps spinning. No marketing campaign could be more efficient. The anxious man does the work for you. The state's dividend. Governments have always used fear as a tool. Medieval kings preached hellfire. Industrial states preached nationalism. Cold War leaders preached nuclear annihilation. Fear kept populations obedient. Fear justified taxes, wars, expansion. Now fear is privatized, outsourced to corporations. Your panic is a joint venture between the state and Silicon Valley. Governments love an anxious citizen. He is too distracted to rebel, too tired to organize, too panicked to resist. Corporations love an anxious citizen. He is the perfect consumer. Together they extract from you what empires once extracted through whips and chains. Only now the whip is a notification. The chain is a loop in your head. Fear markets. Think about financial markets. What moves them more reliably than fear? A single headline of crisis can erase billions in value in minutes. A rumor of collapse can send investors fleeing. Now realize your nervous system is treated the same way. Each headline is designed to crash your calm. Each notification engineered to spark volatility. Your emotions are traded like commodities. Your panic priced into quarterly reports. Fear is not abstract. It is a resource with a valuation. Your anxiety isn't invisible, it's on a balance sheet. The class divide in fear, and here is the cruel divide. The powerless fear, the powerful sell fear. The anxious man scrolls through panic headlines. The sovereign man buys media companies. The anxious man stockpiles supplements and apps. The sovereign man funds the startups. The anxious man trembles at the market. The sovereign man positions himself to profit from the trembling. The loop you can't escape is the business they can't lose. This is why the rich appear calm. They aren't braver, smarter, stronger. They're insulated. Their fears are abstract. Your fears are engineered. Anxiety is governance. Understand. Anxiety is not a side effect of capitalism. It is capitalism. It is governance. It keeps you working when you should rest. It keeps you consuming when you should save. It keeps you refreshing when you should reflect. It keeps you paralyzed when you should rebel. The sovereign knows this. The sovereign uses this. The sovereign profits from this. The anxious man mistakes his spiral for weakness. The sovereign sees it for what it is: obedience. So when you feel the loop tighten, when you catch yourself spiraling, understand, you are not alone. You are not defective. You are participating in the most profitable business model in human history. Your anxiety is their commodity. Your panic is their subscription. Your loops are their dividends. You are not failing. You are producing. You are exporting. You are currency in a fear economy, and until you see that, you will keep blaming yourself while the system harvests your loops. Every empire believes it will last forever. Every empire imagines itself immune to the decay that felled its predecessors. And every empire invents its own method of pacification. It's a unique way of keeping the masses docile, while the structure rots from within. For Rome, it was bread and For Britain, it was sugar and opium. For the Soviet Union, it was paranoia and surveillance. For America, it is anxiety. The anxiety loop is not new. It is the latest incarnation of an old pattern: governance through nervous systems. Rome. Bread and circuses consider Rome in its imperial twilight. Once a republic of discipline and conquest, it became an empire of spectacle. The Colosseum was not just entertainment, it was management. Gladiatorial blood sport was designed to saturate citizens with adrenaline, to give them the illusion of importance while stripping them of agency. The Roman citizen, once the soldier farmer who conquered the Mediterranean, became the passive spectator who cheered while others fought. He was anxious about grain rations, anxious about barbarian raids, anxious about his own irrelevance. And the empire fed that anxiety with spectacle. Rome did not collapse suddenly. It unraveled in loops. Nervous citizens, distracted by games, fearful of famine, dependent on handouts. Their anxiety was the leash that kept them obedient as the empire hollowed. Britain. Sugar and opium. Centuries later, Britain built its empire not only on naval power, but on narcotics. Sugar was its first addiction engine. Once rare, sugar became the staple of the working class. Laced into tea, bread, gin, it fueled restless workers but kept them docile, metabolically enslaved. Then came opium. In the 19th century, Britain flooded China with opium, creating millions of addicts, and entire provinces paralyzed by loops of craving and relief. It was not just commerce, it was control. But opium was a two-edged sword. Addiction corroded not only the Chinese, but the British themselves. The gin craze of London, the metabolic collapse of the working poor. The empire's moral decay, all driven by substances that pacified in the short term and eroded in the long term. Britain's decline was not just military overstretch, it was civilizational rot. Anxiety soothed with sugar, despair drowned in gin, ambition numbed with narcotics. A loop that weakened the empire from the inside out. The Soviet Union. Fear and surveillance. The Soviets built their loop not on sugar or circuses, but on paranoia. A society wired to expect surveillance, denunciation, punishment. Citizens lived in a permanent state of overdrive. Careful what you say, careful who you trust, careful what you think. Anxiety was the operating system. The state didn't need to watch everyone. It only needed citizens to believe they might be watched. The loop ran inside their skulls. The USSR collapsed not because of external invasion, but because a society cannot innovate, cannot adapt, cannot grow when every neuron is dedicated to managing fear. The anxious loop paralyzed the system until it cracked under its own weight. America. The age of dopamine anxiety now. America inherits the same pattern, dressed in digital clothing. The modern citizen is not pacified by coliseums but by feeds. He is not subdued by gin but by sugar. He is not surveilled by secret police but by algorithms. The architecture is cleaner, more elegant, more profitable. Anxiety no longer needs to be delivered with whips or rations. It arrives as a notification. It whispers in the glow of a phone at 2 a.m. It pumps through caffeine in the morning, sugar at lunch, THC at night. And like Rome, Britain, the USSR, America believes itself immune. Too advanced, too wealthy, too powerful, too collapsed. But anxiety erodes silently. It hollows discipline, dissolves focus, rots ambition. It creates citizens who spiral but never act, panic but never rebel, consume but never build. Fear is the common thread across these empires. The thread is the same: fear weaponized. Rome's citizens feared famine. Britain's workers feared hunger and poverty. Soviet citizens feared the knock on the door at midnight. American citizens fear missing out, falling behind, not being enough. The triggers change, the loops do not. Fear keeps populations predictable. Fear keeps them compliant. Fear keeps them distracted from the decay at the center. And eventually, fear eats the civilization itself. The cost of nervous systems, civilizations rise on discipline, on focus, on delayed gratification. on citizens capable of enduring discomfort for future reward. Rome rose on the backs of soldier farmers who lived Spartan lives. Britain rose on Protestant thrift and industrial rigor. America rose on pioneers and inventors willing to risk everything for expansion. But civilizations fall when nervous systems are hijacked, when fear replaces focus, when anxiety replaces ambition, when the loop replaces the line. That is why every empire discovers its own addiction, its own anxiety trigger, its own method of pacification. And that is why every empire eventually dissolves under its weight. America's fate. So ask yourself, what happens when a nation of anxious consumers faces nations of disciplined builders? What happens when a population trapped in loops competes against populations still capable of lines, of projects, of long-term vision? The answer is already visible. Infrastructure crumbles. Families dissolve. Attention spans collapse. Political discourse degrades into panic theater. Citizens spiral while rivals build. And just as Rome could not withstand barbarians, just as Britain could not withstand industrial rivals, America will not withstand global competition while its citizens drown in loops. Anxiety is not just personal pathology. It is civilizational suicide. History is merciless. It shows us the same pattern again and again. Spectacle, sedation, surveillance, anxiety. Each empire finds its loop. Each empire mistakes it for progress. Each empire is undone by it. Rome had circuses. Britain had opium. The Soviets had paranoia. America has dopamine anxiety. The names change. The decline does not. The end will not come with trumpets. It will not come with armies. It will not come with banners on the wind. It will come quietly, silently, in living rooms lit by blue light, in bedrooms at 3 a.m., with hand-scrolling glass, in offices where men stare at screens, paralyzed, while their empire burns outside the window. Collapse will not roar. Collapse will whimper. Collapse will look like millions of citizens lost in loops while the foundations rot beneath them. The addicted nation, picture it. A people medicated by caffeine in the morning, sugar at lunch, weed at night. A people sedated by porn, pacified by feeds, distracted by noise. A people so wired with fear, so paralyzed by overdrive, that they cannot focus for 10 minutes, cannot plan for 10 years, cannot imagine a future beyond the next notification. This is not laziness. This is not weakness. This is addiction disguised as life, and it is the signature of decline. Nations rise when citizens endure. Nations fall when citizens sedate. Rome fell with circuses. Britain fell with opium. America falls with dopamine. The obituary is already written. The body is still twitching. Collapse is ritual. Civilizations do not simply end. They perform their own funerals. Rome threw games until the treasury was empty. Britain drank and smoked itself into decline. The Soviets policed themselves into paralysis. America will scroll itself into silence. Every loop is a ritual act of collapse. Every anxious refresh, every midnight binge, every paralyzed morning staring at the wall is another stone pulled from the foundation. Collapse is not sudden. Collapse is thousands of small loops compounding until the walls fall in. And when it falls, the people will not rise in fury. They will not storm palaces. They will not raise armies. They will refresh their feeds and watch it happen. The silence of the end. Do not expect fire in the streets. Do not expect bombs or armies. Expect silence. Collapse will look like empty towns and broken infrastructure. Collapse will look like children too anxious to leave their rooms. Collapse will look like men who never built families. Women who never raised children, cities filled with ghosts who never lived beyond their loops. The barbarians won't need to invade. They will walk in unopposed. A people too anxious to stand will not resist. A people too anxious to build will not rebuild. A people too anxious to live will not survive. The silence of the loop is the silence of collapse. The survivors, but not everyone, will vanish. There will be enclaves, citadels, pockets of sovereignty, men who refused the loop, men who tore the leash out of their skulls. Men who built while others scrolled. They will inherit the ruins, not because they are many, but because they are few, because they are different, because they refuse to trade discipline for sedation, sovereignty for anxiety. History has always belonged to the disciplined minority, never the anxious majority. And when America dissolves into loops, when the empire drowns in dopamine, it will be no different. The sovereign will survive. The anxious will not. The prophecy fulfilled, so hear it now. The prophecy is not a warning, it is a map, a timetable, a pattern, etched into history. Rome had circuses. Britain had opium. The Soviets had paranoia. America has anxiety. And like them all, America will fall, not in fire, not in war, but in silence, in loops. In a nation of citizens who mistook their addiction for freedom, who laughed at their own chains, who joked about their own paralysis until there was nothing left to joke about. Civilizations do not rise on anxiety, they collapse on it. and the collapse has already begun. The anxious man thinks he is lazy. He thinks he is defective. He does not see he is livestock. He does not see his loops are the architecture of empire. He does not see collapse written in his own spirals. But the sovereign man sees. He knows the end will not be loud. He knows it will not be fire, but silence. He knows it will not be war, but loops. And he knows that when the anxious have scrolled themselves into extinction, the world will still turn, and he will remain. This has been the Anxiety Loop. Not advice, not therapy, a prophecy. The story isn't over. This was the Anarchist File.